Many years ago, the wonderful writer and artist Jan Richardson introduced me to a wonderful and remarkable woman named Eddie Heiselman. In 1914, Eddie was born to a cultured Jewish family, a Dutch family. Her father was a celebrated scholar and headmaster of a college preparatory school. Her brother Misha would become an accomplished pianist, and her brother Jaap, an outstanding scientist. A brilliant student herself, Eddie took a degree in law and went on to study Slavic languages, philosophy, and psychology. She would fall in love with two men in her life. Her circle of friends in Amsterdam included a variety of interesting people from all walks of life. She was witty and charming and just beginning her life when the world suddenly changed. In 1914, she began a journal. Hitler's armies had invaded her home of the Netherlands 9 months before she took up her pen. As the Nazi forces wielded increasing control over nearly every aspect of her life and the life of her community, Eddie, a brilliant thinker and a graceful writer, penned word after word, filling a series of 8 notebooks over the next 19 months. "If I have one duty in these times," she observed, "it is to bear witness." Eddie Heiselman believed she had found her calling in life. So amid the mounting terrors that the Nazis were inflicting, Eddie filled those books with words that documented and reflected on the dailiness of her life. She wrote of the complexities of her relationships with family and friends, her work as a Russian tutor, her passionate appetite for reading. She especially liked the words of the poet Rilke and of the Gospels. She wrote of her hungers, her longings, and she wrote of her prayers. Her diaries were not a form of escapism, rather they convey her conviction that the exterior and interior worlds are not separate from each other. With a wisdom that is perhaps only born with hardship, Eddie believed that doing one's inner work was crucial to the thriving of any society. She wrote that if we refuse to look into our shadows, if we resist going to the places where there is no light, within ourselves and within our world, our shadows will eventually spill out in hatred and violence, as her own homeland was experiencing. Perhaps it was with even more wisdom that Eddie recognized both her capacity for hatred and the need to let it go. In 1942, some sources say Eddie was sent to the labor camp at Westerbork. Others say when the roundup of Jews occurred in Amsterdam, Eddie volunteered to go with her friends and her fellow Jews. Westerbork, as you may know, was considered the last stop before Auschwitz. Interestingly, by special arrangement, Eddie held a position that enabled her to travel back and forth to Amsterdam. She transported letters, messages, and medicines to and from the outside. And although her position offered the possibility of escape, Eddie refused, even resisting an attempt by friends to kidnap her to safety. She refused because she believed she was called to remain with those who were suffering. Reports from her companions at Westerbork confirmed this luminous personality that her written words revealed. On September 7th, 1943, Eddie was put on a train to Auschwitz with her father, her mother, and her brother Misha. None of them returned. But as they left Westerbork, we are told that Eddie threw a postcard from the train. On it, she had written, "Tell them we left singing." Being comfort and hope to others is not the responsibility of the few. We appreciate hearing the stories of people like Eddie, who were able to go beyond themselves to live amidst the suffering of others, to offer comfort and help in the worst of times. Yet we fail to see ourselves in those roles. So we assign that duty to doctors and nurses, to social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, even some ministers. We live, though, in a time, I think, and in a world where our ability to go forward requires all of us to open our eyes and our hearts to the suffering of the world. And in opening our eyes and our hearts, we have the possibility, like Eddie Heiselman, to become people who have the capacity to offer comfort and hope to those suffering around us. It is a rare privilege to become light in places where there is no light. The people who understand that and who accept this work of being comfort and bringing hope find great peace, no matter what the situation, no matter how small or how large the need. Some of us are called to work with the larger picture, to organize climate change marches in New York, marches that remind us that the poor and the marginalized are the ones who will suffer the most if we don't change our ways. Some of us are called to go to Ferguson and hold up our hands and insist that Black lives do matter. Some of us are called to bring lawsuits to the highest court in the land in order to bring marriage equality to everyone in our country. Some of us are called to light candles and stand with our Muslim brothers and sisters when the fear mongers work so hard to grow crops of hatred. Some of us are called to lobby city and state governments so that no one has to live on the streets of our cities. Others of us, though, are called to the details of life, called to embrace the people and the places we inhabit day in and day out. Some of us are called to be part of that smaller picture as we teach respect for the earth and all its peoples to students in our classrooms, as we speak up in situations where fear and hate are being passed off as truth, as we change our profile picture on Facebook to support human rights and marriage equality, as we wear a headscarf in solidarity with the Muslim women who are on our college campus, to share, as many will today, blankets and tarps for those who are street dependent in our own neighborhoods, and for all of us to teach our children that kindness and humility are the cornerstones of a meaningful life. Small offerings can become life-changing if they are offered with loving intentions. When we open ourselves, when we are intentional about living lives that offer comfort and hope rather than fear and judgment, our gifts, our offerings to others have the possibility of changing lives in ways that we could never imagine. In another one of the camps, a French Jewish mother had smuggled in 2 pieces of that wonderful French chocolate. She snuggled it in for her child, and she hid it away for the day that her daughter would no longer be able to go on. She told her daughter, "We will save it until you need it desperately, and then I will give you the chocolate, and you will feel better." But one day, their friend Helene, pregnant in the worst of times, went into labor. And as that mother prepared to go to the camp hospital with her friend, she asked her daughter's permission to take the chocolate and give it to their friend, because it was going to be very hard to bring a baby into their world. Her daughter Francine agreed. The baby was born, the mother lived, and 6 months later, the camp was liberated. Many years passed. Francine, along with her own grown daughter, arranged a lecture on the struggles with mental illness in survivors of the camps. As one of the presenters prepared to speak, a young woman who was a psychiatrist from Marseille, the young woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a gift for Francine Christophe. It was nothing remarkable. It was just a small piece of chocolate. But as she gave it to Francine, she told her, "I am that baby." The people who need comfort and hope may be sitting right next to you today. This week, a person may cross your path that desperately needs your care. Or it may be years from now that you have the opportunity to offer a small ray of hope that will allow someone to make it through their suffering. Through small acts of kindness, the healing powers that lie within a smile and the miracles worked by gentle hands, we co-create this world with our God and with each other. And in doing so, we touch and change the human face of this world. Only by the power of God's love and our love does misery turn to beauty, despair to new life, and the killing weight of endless suffering become the freedom of human possibility. So on this day, life calls us once more to celebrate God's presence with love, the deep and burning kind of love that requires our commitment to be people of the light. May we find within our hearts this morning the power of that love waiting to be spilled freely and lavishly in every place we might find need. Because whether it is in big or small ways, we are all called to heal the world. Amen.